Hello there. So I put this off for a while. I wanted to do it at Renegades, and then I just got down in the dumps, and then I just never got around to doing it. But here it is. I'm going to do a walkthrough of triple DPS, where it came from, how to execute it, and it'll be an in-depth. I'll go over positioning, checkdowns, everybody's job in the composition, things you're supposed to do, things you're not supposed to do, and then I'll explain every role's job in the variants that I know and understand it. So we're going to start off with, where did triple DPS come from? Where did the idea pop into my head that triple DPS was a thing? Because a lot of people told me when I said triple DPS was going to be a thing, you're wrong. Two tanks, you have to have two tanks, you have to have enough ass. Like, we're just going to get run over, people are just going to frag out. Like, why does this work? The idea came after I watched Complexity on Gibraltar. I was doing research for them for a tournament, and Complexity was running Reinhardt, Roadhog, Sombra, 76, Ana, and Lucio. And for anybody who follows the pro scene from a year ago or followed the pro scene back then, Harblue was the god of Gibraltar. He was the flanker hog god. And this is back when Roadhog was 1.0, so he would get really good hooks. He had great insta-give potential. His damage was higher. And Harblue made it work. So when game planning against Harblue, I had to think about what can duel a flanking Roadhog consistently, or I have to scout everywhere he's going to go, and all these things. And I originally was going to like set it up into a 1v1 versus Harblue, but the team decided to go with the scouting route. And Complexity is probably the only team in my career I've ever truly had the inner workings without ever being in their scrims, having VODs of them outside of tournament play, and being able to just say that, yes, that's where he will be. At this timing, this is where this person will be. At this timing, this is where this person will be. And to Complexity's credit, Complexity came up with a lot of in-depth strategies, but they were really telegraphed. And once you figured that out, it was really easy to deal with. So it got put on the back burner, and then the Ana nerfs came. And then after the Ana nerfs came, everybody was running quad tank or triple tracer, and it was this really weird time in Overwatch where nobody really knew what to do. And I had, at the time, Mangachu, Jesus, and we were trialing players. I knew we needed a Genji player, and Mangachu learning Genji was an option, but I wanted to be able to run Pharah and Genji at the same time. I wanted to be able to run Pharah and Genji at the same time, and I'll get into that later. Um, anyway, with the way that the comp works out is because of the Ana nerfs, people went back to Lucio Zen, and people went back to maybe Mercy Lucio. And those support pairs have inherent flaws that you can exploit. And I realized this while doing VOD review for my own team, that my Zenyatta was under so much pressure that he couldn't actively contribute to the game. Nowadays, maybe a Zenyatta will win the 1v1 more often, but back then, you couldn't realistically ask your Zenyatta to win the 1v1 versus a lot of heroes. And in effect, it made it so that if you could take the Zenyatta out of the game, you could pretty much guarantee yourself a 5v6 with good communication and team fighting. So I snowballed that idea into trialing a Genji, getting a Genji player who could also play Diva, letting Jesus excel on Tracer, and teaching him this form of Tracer. The difference between Jesus's Tracer and Soon's, Sabiolbe's, or any of the top tier tracers is Jesus is a team oriented tracer. He's a tracer of opportunity, where the other tracers are carry tracers that create their own opportunity. So I'll get into that later, but it is there's a key difference between the two. So that's basically where the idea sprouted up, and then I refined it. I started trialing Genjis. I started pushing the idea more onto my players, and I started refining it. And eventually, our dive was born. And we were one of the only teams that had a Pharah, a Genji, and a Tracer player. Everybody else still had only a Flex tank. And the Flex tank could play Diva, Zarya, Hog at the time. This was before Flex tanks were expected to have a DPS in their pool. And we would run into teams, and their flex tank would be like, all right, I will go Diva. And this is old school Diva. This is bad Diva. This is Infinite Matrix, but fucking had no damage diva. And they would just get manipulated and they would get frustrated and then they would go Zarya to maybe, do a strat and then we would exploit the Zarya. Or they would go, Winston to try and counter one of the other things. And it's just it pulls them apart. It desyncs their entire team. So we had this advantage of a Genji that could play Diva, and we could flex back into a standard composition if this didn't work. If not, we would snowball with this composition and we would just win. So that's the birth of triple DPS. All right, so we're going to talk right now, and this is why I have this stuff set up on the screen, is how do you build a triple DPS comp? Well, you have to start off with the DPS. So you first have to look at the map. Currently, I'm set up with a video of Gibraltar. For Gibraltar, Pharah first point is good, and this is where you need to talk to your players and you talk to who does what and where is heroes good, because there are situations where one of the three in the standard triple DPS, whether it's 76 Pharah, Tracer, Genji, is bad, and they become suboptimal. So you would see maps where Pharah is very constrained and you couldn't get away with a Pharah, so you'd run a 76. But you would run it in the same style-esque concept, and the composition still worked the same way. So what DPS do you want to build? So I'm on Gibraltar, as said, and we'll say for sake of argument, I am on defense. So for defense, I would want to open with a Pharah. Opening with a Pharah, there's nothing wrong with it. If you get countered, you can flex. If you assume they're going to counter, you've already countered yourself and you've conducted a mind game on yourself, so it's better to open and get hard countered than it is to not try at all, because there might be a chance that they have no clue and then you just snowball off of it. Um, Tracer is core to this comp, and there is very, very few points where Tracer isn't valuable. When Tracer isn't valuable, you need to flex them to a sniper, whether it is Hanzo or Widow. And the reason you flex the Tracer to these things is the snipers have verticality, but they give you the exact same benefit, and then there's a rotation of players. So the reason I have them broken up into different categories on the screen is because Tracer will flex into the snipers, but the snipers and the Tracers are not doing the same job. They have a check down. So when Tracer is no longer on the field, the Genji takes that role, and then the sniper takes the other role, and you'll see when I get into it. All right, so let's talk about the DPS. Like I said, you have Pharah, Tracer, and then there is the other DPS, the projectile flanker, whatever the hell you want to call it. Um, Genji is the standard. Genji, I'll get into why Genji is the standard pick. Doomfist currently could also fit in that role, because of how forgiving he is, and his insta-give potential. We'll get into that later. And then I also have Roadhog and Diva there because of where this composition came from and why this could still work with them playing instead of as off tanks in the pocket supporting the main tank as DPS players. Diva also fits into the DPS category of the other DPS, and we'll get into why that happens in a minute. What supports do you use? So I have declared my triple DPS is going to be Pharah, Tracer, and Genji. I am not looking to build my supports around my main tank anymore. I am looking to enable my team as best I can. So my support selection is no longer based on my tank. My support selection is based upon my DPS and enabling them. So the best way I can enable a Genji and a Pharah is to run Mercy Zen or Mercy Ana. Mercy Moira actually is probably going to be the new fad with triple DPS if you run it. Moira and Genji are both very forgiving, and if the Moira is skilled enough to get to where the Genji is, she can pretty much guarantee him what he needs to survive. And if the Moira plays correctly, she also fits into the flanker role. Sadly, Mayhem does not have a picture of Moira in the stickers yet, neither do they have Doomfist. So I just go ahead and put them there. Moira's in the support category. So I would like a Mercy for my Pharah, and then I would like, one of the other supports. Well, I can't throw my tank completely under the bus, so let's talk about tank. What tank do you use? What are the criteria for what tank you pick? You have declared the rest of your composition. I need a tank who can duel. I need a tank who can survive on his own as long as possible, and I need a tank who has mobility forgiveness. So when I say mobility forgiveness, Winston Leap, Rhine Charge, and Diva Boost are all mobility forgiveness. You cannot run Orisa in a triple DPS comp. Your Orisa is just going to be farmed, and you're going to have to dedicate supports to the tank, and then at that point your composition is going to break down because you have inherently broke triple DPS already. So we'll talk about each of the tanks real quick with which one you pick and why. Winston was the mock standard for a really long time because Winston could apply pressure to Tracer, Genji, could basically play on payload by himself, minimal support. Your Mercy could top him off, and then he can just go back to babysitting payload or doing what he needed to do. The other thing Winston did well was Winston was a mobile assassin where he was playing basically as a DPS sometimes. And we'll get into the checkdowns and whose job is it and where they go and what later. Um, Reinhardt was the other option that we used because Ana wasn't completely dead yet. Ana just couldn't support 4 tanks. Ana pocketing someone is a bitch. Ana could keep a Reinhardt alive long enough that the Reinhardt could stall. So you could run an Ana in triple DPS. That gives you combo potential with Pharah, that gives you combo potential with Genji, and that gives you combo potential with your main tank because you can nano your main tank to keep him alive longer. Um, and that's like you see how it's all starting to fit together now. And like nanoing a Winston's effective health goes from 600 to, or not 600, from 1200 with shield all the way up to that would be 1800. And if you throw his ult in on top of it, it's probably around 3k survivability with a nano boost. Diva was the pick that I wanted to put in the slot. I actually really thought for the longest time Diva was going to be the tank you played in triple DPS because Diva's innate counter ability and how much utility she has. Like Diva's kit is the most utility based out of all the tanks. She has the most impact on the most situations. She's a tank destroyer. She can eat damage flat out. Her ultimate is the highest alpha damage ultimate in the game. She has mobility to get to high ground, and she has effective health of 600 plus 2.5 seconds now. But it was what 5 seconds back in the day. She was god tier if you played her correctly. So how did Diva fall out of it? Diva didn't have the thing she has now. And the thing she has now, even with the Matrix loss, is the rockets. And the Diva rockets push her into being a DPS, and they also push her into being a tank. You could play Diva as your main tank here because she accomplishes the same thing as Winston while achieving higher burst damage output. She has a better utility ultimate, but you lose sustainability. But if you have a support that can keep the Diva in mech and the Diva can stay in mech, arguably Diva's probably the best of the 3 currently. Back then, not so much. Diva was frowned upon heavily because Diva felt like shit. Alright, so let's talk about Rhine real quick. Well, how does Rhine fit in? Rhine's just going to get destroyed by, a Tracer's just going to harass him to death. That's the Rhine's job. If the Rhine can tie up a DPS and survive and not feed too hard. Like I expected my main tank to feed. I expected my main tank to not enjoy it and not have fun. And that was to be expected. But if the main tank could execute his job, he alleviated pressure off of his supports and off of his DPS. So the main tank is huge here in the fact that he's not actively part of the frag core per se or active in the participation of the game. He has specific jobs and his check down list falls to everybody else when he falls. But if he is a pillar of support and can hold you up, you can't lose with this composition as long as you're playing at your best ability and rely on mechanical DM. All right, so I just touched a little bit on Diva. Where does Diva fit now? And why do I think that we probably won't ever see triple DPS in this form and variation again? All right, so the first thing is Mercy Res got changed. Mercy res used to be it hit everybody within a certain specific spot. If you were going to die, you died with the group, you died on payload, you resed, and then you reset, re-engaged. That's the first thing. Mercy res being changed, this composition is either going to get astronomically better or it's going to fall flat and you'll never be able to run it again. The second thing with this composition is Diva. Now that Diva has so much damage, is it worth running the Pharah or the Genji when you could run the Diva in that spot's place? Diva obviously can't fill the roles of a sniper, but she can fill the roles of a Pharah with burst damage. She can go in and she can insta-gib someone. It's the same as double directs with Pharah. Diva can get in and deal 200 burst damage with boost, uh, rockets, and left mouse button. A squishy not paying attention, Diva can gib. So it's more risky, but arguably you can do it. You're going to feed more, but you have higher sustainability, and then we get into the ultimate argument, and I'm not going to get into that. So she sort of fills that slot. What about the Genji slot? Diva and Genji. Diva as a flanker is one of the oddities in Overwatch where I don't think the topic has been elaborated on, where the Diva looks for targets of opportunity and plays arguably like a bitch away from the team, but provides utility to herself. And if you have good communication, she could fit that slot. But it's questionable encounter. Like, I don't think this composition honestly is going to come back in the old form and how it used to be. But the concept is still the same and the principle is still the same. All right, so I've talked about all the picks, and you can see on your screen now who fits what role. The tanks are going to be Diva, Winston, or Rhine. Your flankers are going to be Genji, Doomfist, Roadhog, or Diva. Your main DPS in this composition is going to be Tracer. Your flex DPS in this composition has to have the biggest hero pool and the biggest expectation is on them because of how the checkdowns work, and we'll get into that in a minute. But they're probably going to be playing Pharah, 76, Junkrat, Reaper, Sombra. Bastion is a big one there for specific closeout points and understanding how to flex into them. And then your Tracer also has to be able to play both snipers, or your secondary DPS has to be able to. Your flex DPS has to play both snipers. Your support players are going to be playing what enables the DPS the best. So Moira, Ana, Mercy, Lucio. Zen is not on this list for a specific reason, and we're going to get into that when I start talking about basic setups and why Zenyatta does not fit in this composition, and why Zenyatta basically is hard countered by this composition, and you can force Zen out of the game with this composition. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. Alright, so I'm going to take one of the old school Renegade setups, and I'm going to put it on your screen. And this is us. Basically, we'll say the enemy team came out and they're on the cart now. All right, so I need a Pharah there, and Jesus played back here. That's behind the building. I need a Gangu, and Gangu would play here until the payload started. And then I need a monkey, and my monkey's right here because that's where my monkey always resolved. He didn't start there, but he always resolved there. Our Mercy plays bouncing between the Pharah and the monkey, and then we had a Lucio playing on this side. All right, so what setup is this? This is triple DPS basic setup on Gibraltar. All right, so we're going to talk about triple DPS into quad tank. So I'm going to set up a quad tank for the opposing team. They're going to have a Reinhardt on cart. Oh, I'm going to change the color real quick because that'll be confusing. 1 second, guys. All right, so we're going to put the Reinhardt on cart. We're going to put him with Zarya because that was what you ran, because Zarya is the core DPS in quad tank. We're going to give him a Roadhog, and we're going to give him a Diva. And then because I lack a Moira icon, I'm going to just make it an X. That'll represent Moira. And then we're going to add a Lucio sticker. All right, so this is basically how this setup works. All right, so we're going to go ahead and change my color again. All right, so the composition loads onto the cart. The murder ball comp wants to be tight, as they are on the screen right now. They want to all be balled up, playing the objective, looking for kills. So as the cart progresses, I'm going to do this in white, the cart moves, it's going to reach a point, which is the contest point. Winston's job, and I hope I have enough colors for this. If I don't, I'm sorry, and some people will have the same colors, but we'll see how it works. Winston's job is purely to contest this point. He is not to engage, he is to disengage. If he gets pressured, he is to get out. If he does get out, he is to go back to his spot until they apply pressure to him again. His job is to contest the payload without dying. He can give up space, but his job is to be the person who stops the opposing team from doing their job. Mercy's job is to support the main tank and support the Pharah by giving the Pharah damage and heals, and then to heal the main tank. Lucio's job is going to be okay. I'll do Lucio real quick. Yeah, doing Lucio now is just the same. It's fine. The pencil. Lucio's job is to deal with negative space. Lucio's job is to deal with all of this space that is irrelevant. All of this space that the opposing team can't move the objective with. So this is actually negative space here. That's all negative space. And then back here, this is all going to be negative space. So Lucio's job is to deal with all of this negative space. And I don't mean in the fact of like chasing people off, killing them. Effectively, what Lucio is doing is Lucio is roaming around to where he is needed. The Lucio can pocket the Genji and amp him up real quick, get him to a health pack if he needs it. His job is also to help the speed and sustain of the main tank. So he is a mobile medic. He is dealing with these two heroes. He's supporting the Genji in his rotations and the Winston in his rotations, and he's also doing with supplemental heals. So with the Lucio dealing with that, we'll now get into the DPS. And this is where this composition gets really, really interesting. So I'm going to draw this arrow, and that's going to be Pharah's spam. Pharah is looking for as many directs and as much splash as possible on targets. When you have a Pharah uncontested versus tanks, you can farm barrage effective forever. You can effectively double, triple direct people, and it just chunks people. And your Pharah can hard carry. Mangachu has displayed this multiple times. If you do not deal with the Pharah will win the game for you. Alright, so that's the Pharah. The Pharah is just bulk damage. Bulk damage. Buy in bulk. Super large. Alright, so now we're going to talk about what the Tracer's job is. The Tracer's job and only job in this composition is a mark. The Tracer is farming damage and obviously contributing, but her biggest job in this composition is a mark. And I'm actually going to do this. I didn't want to because I wanted to keep it concurrent with the current compositions, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put Zen up here because people did this for a while and it irritated the hell out of me because this shit should not work and never work, and it was really, really irritating. So they have a Zenyatta. Tracer's job and only job is to play behind the opposing team. Oh, that's a Zenyatta. I don't want a Zenyatta. I want to draw a line. Her job is to play behind the opposing composition. Anywhere behind the opposing composition. She's not dictated where she has to play. She wants to play at a 45-degree angle from the opposing team. She is more than welcome to. If she doesn't want to, that's fine. I'm going to display it like over here real quick. This triangle represents the opposing team. Tracer is allowed to play anywhere within the yellow on the backside of the composition. This is Tracer's realm. Tracer lives here, anywhere on the map, while the opposing team is trying to move the payload that way. or move the objective that way. Tracer's playing behind them. And there's a reason for this, and I'll get into it in a minute, but that shows you where Tracer is playing. So Tracer's playing on that back end side, and then we'll get to the Genji. Genji is not playing this as a... He's not getting in there and mixing it up. Genji's job is not that. Genji's job is to look for targets of opportunity. What do I mean when I say a target of opportunity? Genji's highest valued ability is not Dragon Blade, it is not Deflect, it is not Double Jump, it is not his movement speed being faster, it's not his shurikens. Nothing about his kit is truly amazing except his reset. His reset mechanic on his dash effectively makes it so that Genji can get out. And I am not joking, I have done the math. It is 950 burst damage onto an enemy team. If he chains resets correctly and the opposing team stands correctly, he can insta-gib an entire team if the damage falls correctly, just by dashing 6 times. He will generate a blade, and then he can get another TTK right after that. Genji's reset mechanic is one of the core foundations of this composition. So while Pharah is getting 200 or 150 damage rockets in onto the core, if she directs Lucio, Pharah is going to call Lucio direct. When that happens, Genji is going to take his chance to get that dash reset. So I'm going to draw X's over here real quick. Each of these is going to represent an opposing hero. The health pool doesn't really matter, but what I'm going to show you is how the Genji is positioning and what he's trying to achieve. So we'll say, for the sake of argument, I'm going to change color real quick. This is the Lucio. That one right there. I don't know why it did that, but there you go. That's the Lucio. And we'll say another squishy is this one. Those two are the squishies, 200 health heroes. Everything else is, pretty hefty. Genji is looking for an angle where he can connect his dash to secure the kill on this first target and then hit the second target. So Genji, who's playing off over here, is looking to come in, hit his point, hit his dash, and hit these people. When he hits his dash, because of Genji's double jump and deflect and his survivability, he's going to whip around, and when that target is killed, as soon as you have kill confirmation, I need to erase this because this isn't showing up correctly. Alright, so Genji gets kill confirmation and he jumps out. He's looking to re-engage. As soon as he gets this re-engage, he's going to look to dash people again. So he's going to dash as many targets as possible, and he gets another clean reset. So we'll say both of the squishies died. He now has another dash, but he's not going to get another kill reset. The team hasn't applied enough damage, and potentially there's not a big enough window. The Genji is instead now going to look for a dash of opportunity, where the Genji looks to get as much bulk damage as possible onto teams. So with this target here being dead and this target here being dead, his best opportunity to get a dash for bulk damage is going to be to hit the two people who are on a line, and he is going to resolve down here. So what effectively has happened, and this is, ideal situation where, Genji got everybody lined up. Some people are going to say that, but this happens a lot more in Overwatch than you would think, with people balling up and playing around their support. If the Genji can see the opponents, how they're going to set up, he's going to get these resets. And if the Genji can pop off with kill reset mechanics, your Genji's going to hard carry, and people are going to claim that, your Genji's fucking amazing, when in fact it was a team effort. Because, we're going to talk about that now. Who is applying pressure? Who could be applying pressure in our composition? Who is looking to set this up? The first thing you do is your Pharah spam. Pharah spam is going to be able to set up directs onto squishies. Your Tracer, who has been marking the main support of the opposing team the entire game, that's her only key job, is to mark the main support. She is going to be setting him up. If she does not kill him herself, She calms, and Genji comes in and cleans it up. He's the garbage man. He takes away all the 50 health targets. And the other thing is, people are like, oh, well, 50 health fucking dash, doesn't really matter. If you do the dash melee right click combo with Genji, you can effectively get 225 hit points worth of burst unassisted. You can insta-gib someone if you do it perfectly. I'm not asking you to do it perfectly. Perfectly is never going to continuously happen. All right, so that's basically the fundamental application of triple tank. Or not triple tank, triple DPS. Sorry, that would have been a completely different conversation. Triple DPS. I've explained who goes where. All right, so now we're going to talk about, I'm going to go ahead and clear everything. What happens when people do certain things? So again, this is the opposing team. We're going to say they have a diva there. We're going to say they have a Winston because this is one of the most common comps that we ran into. And then they're going to have a McCree. Where's the McCree? There's a McCree. And then they're going to keep their Zenyatta because Zenyatta's broken and we have to have a Zenyatta. If we don't have a Zenyatta, it doesn't work. And then we're going to have a Lucio. And then we'll go ahead and give the opposing team a Tracer because that's what everybody else wound up doing, was they just AFK'd a Tracer. So effectively, this is what an opposing composition would attack into us with. They would send a Tracer to our backline to harass our main tank or to harass any DPS they could, looking for targets of opportunity. And we'll look at our setup, the triple DPS setup I had. So my Pharah, again, is going to be playing in the high ground. My Mercy is going to be with her, not on my main tank. My main tank is going to be, where's my Winston at? I'm going to put Winston back here because this is just generally how it happened. Winston wound up dueling this person while contesting payload. It got really, really fucking confusing, really, really irritating. But it was manageable, especially with like how people played. Our Lucio at this point is enabling, but he's playing safe. The Lucio and the Winston are creating themselves, they're baiting themselves as dive targets for the opponent, and then you effectively are dealing with the did I live? And if I did not, if I did die, did my team get value? All right, so again, Tracer's in the back line. So I'm going to draw some lines here. This is Tracer's mark. Tracer's mark is the Zenyatta. Zen, I'll explain something else real quick. 1 second. I need a sticker. All right, so Zenyatta and Diva. I'll do it with Diva. I can explain it with Diva the best, and it'll make sense. So there's Diva. You can ignore what's everything on the screen. Focus on this corner where I just put the Diva icon. Diva's matrix can only go in one direction. Diva's matrix is singular. It has to be the way she is facing. Diva cannot matrix a Zenyatta and matrix a Winston who's in front. So our Tracer playing behind is creating an artificial manipulation of where the opposing team is looking. Zenyatta, this applies to his Discord as well. Zen can't rapid Discord. He can't apply Discords to target if he can't see him. And if he's constantly looking over his shoulder for a Tracer, he can't do it. So what opposing teams would do when we started manipulating the direction they're facing and how they were playing the game, I was dictating to them via this composition how they were going to play the game. Teams started trying to counter. So the McCree is set back here, and the Lucio is set back here to poach the Tracer. They're there to deny that bubble. And if the Tracer doesn't come in and the Tracer, goes and farms tanks, they're going to protect the tanks. They are the defenders. They're the guys who are looking out for this area around the team. They're taking care of that. So the Tracer can't harass for free. Also, McCree, 76, were soft counters to Pharah solo. If you had a Discord and a hit scan in a professional setting, you could hard counter a Pharah if she didn't have a Mercy. If Pharah has a Mercy, Pharah can take this fight. Pharah will get at least 4 to 7 rockets off before she has to disengage. And then she uses naturally occurring Reinhardt shields that occur all around the map. They're called buildings and walls. They block infinite damage, infinite blockage. It's great. They are the best shields in the game. And you stay out of LOS for a second and then you re-engage. And just by manipulating those key factors, your Pharah can effectively stay in the game. Granted, she will be denied, and it's not going to be as big of a hard carry, but that's what her job was. So I'm going to go ahead and make a pink line to designate that McCree and Zen were the anti-air of this composition to hard counter you. All right, so that's that. Genji's job still hasn't really changed. Genji is still looking for kills of opportunity anywhere he sees them. Your Lucio again is kiting, and this is effectively what teams started to do to us. So, what happens in this situation when they just ball up like this and they're playing counter heroes? You can use communication via teamwork again to set up scenarios that are advantageous. So if my Pharah peeks this corner and starts spamming, McCree's focus is drawn, Zenyatta's focus is drawn. This gives us an opportunity for Tracer to get in. Tracer does not have to kill the Zenyatta, she just has to apply enough damage to him or to kill him. Kill is optimal. If she doesn't kill him, she applies enough damage to him that Genji can come in and reset. If Genji resets, Genji can reset onto the Zen, and the Lucio and McCree who are babysitting the Zenyatta instantly become damage targets. So when the McCree's focus turns to the Tracer, the Genji is coming in. His focus is again going to shift. The D.Va, we'll even say that the D.Va came back. I will even give you all that. The D.Va shifted, and she is now peeling. And the Winston's fucking, yeah, we're gonna do this. Hold on. The Winston is chasing my Lucio, because that happened a lot too. So, in effect, I have dictated this entire fight and how it works. I have dictated to you your composition. I have dictated to you what you're going to do. I have told you I will not let you run a Zenyatta. If you want to continue to run the Zenyatta, that's your fault. If your Zen can outfrag my Tracer, my Pharah, my Mercy, and my Genji, more power to you. If you can't, I am going to force a flex. So, in effect, I am manipulating heroes in an order of operations. So what happens is Pharah is going to peak. The hit scan and the Discord are going to be directed into the skybox, so you're looking up. You are going to be looking at an upward direction. Now, when the Tracer comes in, you are 180ing and changing your focus, which is going to create mental lag. When that mental lag happens, you are going to have to refocus onto the Tracer. So if you refocus onto the Tracer, Tracer recalls out. When that happens, Genji's going to come in. When Genji comes in, because Tracer and Pharah snowballed this opportunity for the Genji, you're overloading them so much they can't deal with this. So it's an overload offense. You are overloading their ability to counter you by setting each other up. So let's talk about it if the Pharah isn't in. We'll talk about how if my Pharah is the one who isn't in the fight and what happens then. Because this happened a bunch. I'm going to leave that peel line for D.Va because I don't want to. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to erase everything right there. So let's talk about real quick what happens if, say, they are denying your Pharah. They're accepting the fact that Tracer is going to get farm. What does Tracer do? If Tracer gets a kill on Zen, she's going to immediately turn into a tank farm for pulse bombs. Pulse bomb is the singular most broke fucking one-shot ability that really doesn't require any skill. Everybody can tell me to the end of days that pulse bomb requires skill. I want you to do me a favor. Go into a practice range. And this is true for all heroes and all characters. I want you to touch your nose to that practice spot with a pulse bomb. I want you to get as close as you physically fucking can to that model. And I want you to throw your pulse bomb. And I want you to do it, about 200 times. And you come back to me and you tell me how many times you missed when you were touching their character model. Aiming at them, touching their character model, face to face. How many times did you miss? I guarantee you, unless you're trolling, you didn't miss one. Because if you touch somebody with a pulse bomb, it's going to hit. There's no Kobe. You don't miss. You touch the character model. You have played Tracer long enough that you know the blink difference between how far I am versus how far to the target. How far does this blink carry me? When I hit that blink, I want to resolve right there. I want to be in your fucking face. I want to be saying hello, and I want to drop my pulse bomb and GTFO. So you're farming pulse bombs for that. Pharah is going to be farming spam onto those targets to set up kills. If not, she's going to be farming tanks for barrage. Genji is poking, looking for any incidental damage he can get. He's doing the standard Genji thing, which is wall climb, shurikens, wall climb, shurikens, wall climb, shurikens, wall climb, shurikens. My trigger happened. His trigger is his engage. While doing all of this, he's effectively farming Blade. As long as your Winston and your Lucio can contain this space for your team and be denial, because the two of them on cart, if they're smart, you can give up cart time and cart space for them not to die. Get them healed up and then go right back in. I have dictated all of your resources, where they're going to go and how they're going to go. All right, so that's basically the effect of all of this. So I need to erase these lines real quick, and I'm going to talk about whose job is what, and the check downs, and what goes where, who goes where, what. All right, so if there are rules to this, it's not just, what I just mentioned to you. There's actual rules, and we're going to go over some of them real quick. All right, so Tracer's first job, main support. Her second job is tank buster. Because 400 burst damage from Tracer's guns on a 1-second reload is fucking horseshit. Needs to be changed. The fact that you can poke people from fucking infinite range with Tracer's guns is also bullshit. But, I'm a Tracist. I don't like Tracer. I think the Tracer's completely and utterly broken. But that's why she fits in this composition. Anyway, so she's a tank buster. And then her third thing is objective. Her goal is to push the cart or to stop the cart. That's her third thing. If she's killed the main support, she has killed all the tanks. She's killed all the tanks, built a pulse bomb. Her next thing she is supposed to do is objective. All right, so we'll go to Pharah. Pharah's main job. I'm going to change the color real quick. Pharah's job. Spam damage. What's her second job? Closing the gap and fragging. Doesn't matter on who. She just closes the gap and frags. What's her final job? Objective. So we're going to go ahead and talk about Mercy. What's Mercy's primary job? Supporting the flex DPS. That's what Mercy's primary job is. Supporting the flex DPS. Right there. Her secondary job is supporting the main tank. Her third job, supporting all other heroes. Her final job, objective. All right, we're going to change color again. What's Genji's job? Primary job, poke. Secondary job is to look for kills of opportunity. Oh, my brain died there for a second. I couldn't spell opportunity, and I think I still spelled it wrong, but I don't care. All right. His third job is to assume Tracer's job. And this comes after maybe my Tracer can't get in. She can't get the main support. He is to take up that mantle. He does the exact same things. He starts with, if he's getting poke and he's looking for kills of opportunity, he's looking for Zenyatta. That's his primary thing. He's looking for, assumes Tracer's job, main support. There you go. All right. His next job is to kite. When I say kite, His job is to take people to Egypt, and Tracer's job also is to kite, but that's after objective. If she can make it to the objective without dying and she can contest without dying, that's great. If not, she's supposed to take people to Egypt. All right, so these are these four main jobs in order. All right, so we're going to talk about Winston now. All right, so Winston's jobs. Winston's primary job is space denial. I totally spelled denial wrong, and I don't care. Anyway, space denial. His second job, stay alive. His third job is recontest. I'm going to put this in quotes right here. This is his overall job. Like, objective goes with everything I'm putting right here, but he does it in this order. So he denies space, stays alive, recontests, and then his job after all of that is to kite. But he's kiting away from the opposing team and causing an overextension. All right, so now we're going to talk about Lucio. What is Lucio's primary job? His is, again, space denial. Denial. Space denial. There you go. His space denial. His is going to be the negative space that I mentioned earlier. His second one is going to be supporting main tank. His third job is going to be supporting the DPS. Doesn't matter which one, they all are equal to him in his eyes. And then his next job is going to be objective. And then his final thing is going to be stay alive. And then kite is the last thing. So you see how everybody here has their job and it's all checked down. And then I needed to put this in Genji's, but I forgot. So I will fix that real quick. Kite and then objective goes here. Sorry, I fucked that up on Genji. So I'll go through them real quick again. Tracer's jobs are to kill the main support, bust tanks, objective, kite. Genji's are to poke, look for kills of opportunity, assume Tracer's job when Tracer can't execute it or when there's no pressure applied. His job then, after everything else, is to play on the objective or to kite. Pharah's jobs are going to be spam damage, consistent spam damage, close the gap, frag out if not punished. I want the world to focus on me, and then after that, her next focus is going to be the objective. Mercy's is going to be supporting the flex DPS, which is going to be your Pharah in this composition that I've designated for you here. Supporting the main tank, supporting all other heroes after that, and then objective. Lucio's is going to be space denial, supporting the main tank, supporting the DPS. The objective, staying alive, and then kiting. Winston's job is going to be permanently on the objective, but he's also going to be trying to deny as much space as possible. His job's also to stay alive, recontest, and then kite. Somebody may have caught on at this point, if they have been paying attention, that 4 of these heroes are to kite. 2 are not. And the reason for this is reckless abandon. You have to be willing to throw heroes into your opponent with accepting the fact that they're probably going to die. But you want them to be the focus. I want my Pharah Mercy to be the focus of the opposing team. I want them to go triple hit scan Zenyatta to try and counter this Pharah Mercy. I want them to feel oppressed by this Pharah Mercy. I want them to feel like this Pharah Mercy will win the game if I don't deal with them now. And what this does is it creates a focus, an artificial focus. So we're going to put Pharah there, and we're going to put Mercy there. Pharah Mercy. And then I'm going to put Tracer here. And then I'm going to put my Gengu sticker over here. So each of these lines is going to represent normal focus in a team composition. Each of these represents focus in a normal composition. When you allow your Pharah and your Mercy to play with reckless abandon and the ability to die, and you're being very forgiving with how they can play, how they can react, how they can die, all of these things, what happens is Farah's number is artificially inflated. Your team has put that much focus into them. What this does is it creates a diminished focus on these two heroes. And it's substantially lower. The Genji is a fucking ghost at this point because of artificial uh, manipulation of the opposing team. And what the Genji then does is the Genji is free to look for these kills of opportunity because Genji's just throwing shurikens. Like, unless he triple dinks you, you're probably not going to notice getting hit by one shuriken because you're so focused on this pharmacy. You might notice the tracer if your Zenyatta's bitching. You might notice, the tracer, she comes in and she puts a ton of damage into you. But as soon as that Pharah starts shooting at you again, you're going to refocus on her, and that's going to be your sole focus. So you're effectively reducing pressure on DPS players by creating reckless abandon within this hero and this support. The support enables the Pharah to play like this while getting punished. Like, it's going to happen. Your Pharah will die. It is acceptable. But you are making it so that your Tracer and your Genji are under severely less pressure. And if they say, let's say they change it up. They're like, okay, I acknowledge the fact that your pharmacy is good, but we don't need to focus them. So let's look at the triple DPS again. This is your standard focus. All right, let's say you notice Genji is my win condition because Genji is partially the win condition in this comp, and you're like, fuck the Genji. Again, the diminished focus makes it so that Tracer is effectively invisible because you're not paying attention to the Tracer. You're paying attention to the Genji. And this allows these three heroes to enable each other and effectively manipulate the opposing team. This composition relies 100% on manipulation of the opponent and understanding that the hero flexes in Overwatch. So that's how triple DPS plays out for the most part. That's the checkdown list and the jobs. The rotations are going to be fairly simple. This X will represent the opposing team. We'll put them there. The blue line is going to represent Pharah. She is going to circle above the opposing team like a vulture, looking for kills, tagging Pharah along with her. Genji is going to be playing off of the Tracer, so where this pink line is Tracer and she's playing on the backside of the opposing team, looking for kills, Genji is going to be playing opposite of her. So if at some point the Tracer is here, the Genji is going to be playing here. And this again creates focus manipulation where you are forcing heroes to turn and look in other directions and not pay attention to something else. So if they're looking all up into the air and they turn and they flick to the Tracer and the Genji is behind them, they can't see the Genji anymore. They can't see the Pharah anymore. So this is where Pharah can come in and frag. Your Winston and your Lucio are going to effectively do this. It's the hokey pokey, basically. It's you go in, you go out, you go in, you go out, you go in, you go out, you go in, you go out. You get the idea. And then your Mercy is just pocketing one of them. So what this does is it creates a manipulation of the opponents, and you effectively are getting them to try and rub their stomach, pat their head, and say the alphabet. And for some people, when they're playing a competitive video game, it diminishes their mechanical skill to the point of, it doesn't really work. All right, so I'm going to do this real quick because I haven't talked about this yet. Oh, where's Mercy? We're going to talk about the mirror and why this composition is one of the ideal compositions for professional Overwatch. So the biggest variable in professional Overwatch is hero pools, correct? The biggest thing that differentiates somebody besides their natural aim and reaction time, and I'm not talking about those things, is their hero pool. Like that was what I talked about earlier with flex tanks not being able to play, you know, whatever the hell they could play. Like they didn't have DPSs in their pool. There were DPS players who didn't have tanks in their pool for the longest time. DPS players would fight tooth and nail to not play Winston when Winston was one of the best DPS in the game. And that's just how it worked. So what this composition in a mirror does is both comps are trying to accomplish the same thing that I just explained. But what happens is I have turned this into a skill matchup. This is 100% skill-based gameplay. So what happens is each of you effectively gets a mirror match. And this is what happens. Everybody is playing against their counterpart. So let's say for this, I'm going to use pink. This person's a 3. This person's a 1. This person's a 3. This person's a 2. This person's a 1. This person is a 2. And then we'll say this person's a 1. This person's a 2. This person's a 3. This person's a 3. This person's a 2. This person's a 1. When you look at this in a skill-based matchup, the higher number wins. So we'll say that red team wins. Oh, that's not a line. This matchup, red team wins this matchup. Blue team wins this matchup. That's a deadlock. This is it could go either way. And then they win this matchup, and they win this matchup. So in effect, you have taken the game and you have refined it down to do I have a better person in more positions than the opposing team? Do I have better teamwork than the opposing team? There are a ton of variables and factors, but this is effectively what you do in the mirror. It comes down to pure skill, and this should be every pro Overwatch player's dream. I don't have to flex to counter you. I'm going to beat you on the exact same hero. I want you to feel like shit. I want to force you to play something different. I'm not going to counter you. I can beat you in a mirror. And you're going to have to counter me by flexing to something else. Alright, so that has a psychological effect. You can start manipulating and forcing the composition. So they go triple hit scan Zenyatta to counter your pharmacy. You go Diva, Winston, Genji, Tracer, and you should shit all over that composition. They swap to something else, but you have the initiative and the tempo. You have dictated how the game is going to flow, because now you have the ability to flex to counter whatever they did, and you have established flex tempo, and you have the tempo of the game. You control the pace. Um, you literally can do whatever you want with it. The other thing about the composition is, so let's look at quad tank. Quad tank has 600, 400, 500, 500, so that's 2000. So it's 2400 HP of effective health per wipe that you give up. You give out 2400 economy to the opposing team. This composition gives up 600, 500, 800, so 1300. You effectively can fight with this composition twice and wipe and give up less economy than the opposing team if you wipe. If you wipe twice, you're giving them just one more. So you get 2 attempts with this composition where they only get 1 to maintain the sub level of economy. This comp is very forgiving because of the economic difference of only running 1 tank. Alright, so rounding all of this out, why will we probably never see triple DPS in its current form, the form I explained to you, and how you're using your heroes to manipulate your opponents, and how you have a check down list and everybody has their job, and then when a scenario pops up, you're explained, shit, Tracer died, I'm Genji, I'm supposed to take this person's role. I need to start focusing that hero because that hero's the bane of our existence, and if I can kill him, and then my Pharah can do her job, we can still make this work. Once you get to that point in that level, you can make this composition work. And even if it's not meta, this composition can still work. But when somebody else can do that with the compositions that, are more inherently communication based, they rely corely on teamwork, they don't let you manipulate them, they set the pace of the game. This is one of those times where you're going to see, people, bully you, and then you're going to wind up being on the back foot. And it's really, really hard, but it happens. But the biggest reason why we probably will never see a true triple DPS composition again is the fact that Diva is now a thing. Unless you play Diva in the main tank slot and you use her in the same fashion I just told you about, Diva's going to wind up playing that DPS role in that off-tank position. She's going to take either the Genji slot or the Pharah slot because of the nature of the game and how all this other stuff works. Like Diva's 200 burst damage rockets, they need to nerf them, but as soon as they do, triple DPS comes back. Like Diva is the door right now preventing triple DPS from being meta. So just that's what it is right now. Diva is too much damage for her to be considered, just a plain tank, but she's just enough damage that she can force some of these DPS out in triple DPS compositions. But it's, an economy question again, and that's what it is. We'll probably see triple DPS in some form or fashion after the Moira stuff goes live and people have time to play with it. What happened last time was people played triple tank tracer, and then we learned that we could play this way around the triple tank, so we would effectively farm you to death, and then we had better team playing coordination, and you would do scouting reports of opposing teams, so you knew their rotation patterns and who was going to peel for who, and you knew people's traits, and you could just manipulate them. And once you have somebody in the palm of your hand, you can just keep manipulating them. Quick note for this composition on LAN. On LAN, the Pharah is always replaced with a Widow, and if you have to flex the Tracer, the composition falls apart. On LAN, because I haven't had enough video of it, and I don't know fundamentally what the differences are and a few other things, um, Pharah on LAN, rumored, is supposed to be like one of the worst heroes you can play right now because of zero lag hit scan and just in general the ability to hit these shots that we're seeing on Widow. So you would still like do a Mercy or somebody pocketing a Widow, but it arguably would take the place of the Pharah because Widow is just that oppressive. She's a sniper, but you could still make the composition work with a Widow. It's all about, like I said, manipulating people. Everybody has a job, and then preventing your opponent from being able to do it, and then you're dictating their composition to them. So on LAN, arguably you probably won't see Pharah. You'll probably see more Widow, Hanzo, and you're playing it the same way. Like arguably you could play Hanzo in the Pharah slot, and you could have him wall climb and be in the skybox and achieve the same manipulation. Widow with hook shots, playing in the high ground the entire time, looking for flank shots, manipulating. So like a situation you could see in like say with this map on competitive is, this is your Genji. Your Genji winds up in this spot now. Your Tracer is playing, back here still. Your Widow winds up over here. Your Winston plays here. Your Lucio plays, or your Mercy plays like up here, pocketing your Widow, and then your Lucio plays down here with your Winston. And then again, like those two are just kiting out and taking people away from the objective and zoning. And then your Widow's looking for kills of opportunity and, a sight line, something like this. While Genji's looking for kills of opportunity and, this. Genji now is your skybox hero and he rotates with Widow. And again, Tracer's playing in the back line. Stuff like that. I really don't think we're gonna see a resurgence of triple DPS. We might not. Diva's, like I said, the cock block right now. She just has too much damage, too much utility. She's too good at everything. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I hope this explains the thought process of triple DPS, how it works, the check down rules and everything. Obviously, this is the basic form. There are way deeper routes and rabbit holes you can go down when you start thinking about the composition. But I hope this gives you guys a good template with triple DPS, and I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Have a good one, and like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.